and I'll explain to you why I'm mad in a second. But first of all, I want to give a joyous intro to this usually joyous show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Differently Wired Show, episode, 23, all about isolation. We'll be getting to the main topic as we usually do very, very soon. But first of all, I got to get rid of all the usual formalities. If I sound a little bit hyper, it's because I just had an awesome dinner. My favorite, eggs, green, red peppers, is delightful. But you don't care about that. My name is Max Derrat. Good to be with you all again. Your friendly neighborhood Simpsons Ken. And joining me as always is the man who has the skills that pay them bills. He is John Tucker. John, how's it going?
Matt? Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, you enjoying the nice weather down at wherever it is?
I love it. Crystal Beach.
Crystal Beach.
South coast of Canada.
Yes, where you go and get your cheap-ass coffee. Thankfully, I don't drink coffee.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I have a very addictive personality. Thank God I've had the wherewithal to avoid stuff that I could get addicted to. Coffee, drugs, pancakes, all that good stuff. Anyways, before we get started, I gotta do the usual stuff, but hold on, let me see beautiful people in the chat there. Let me bring the chat up. Hello, Stranded. Hello, Halo Metroid. Love that name. Hollow Breen, Shy Violet. Joey Jojo. Good to see you back here, player. Mind the Momarath. Darth Escar 98. That's I care about your eggs. I'm glad you do. Anyways, like I said, I'm feeling a little bit off, so just bear with me, guys. Got to get the usual house cleaning stuff out of the way. First of all, Facebook page, yada, yada, yada. Like it. I know some of you haven't done it. I'm going to make you continuously feel guilty until you do. And as well, Discord server. We have a Discord server. I know a lot of you are gamers, and I know a lot of gamers use Discord. So if you aren't a part of our Discord server, why the hell not? We're almost near 400 members, so if a bunch of you that are listening right now join, you might get all the special privileges and prizes that come along with being the 400th member, so you might want to join now. And in case you guys are wondering what those prizes are, it's just bragging rights. I don't have any money. Come on. I'm yellow. People look at me like I'm a freak whenever I walk into the employment office. Anyways, I got some stuff to talk about. John, I didn't tell you about this before we started the show. I wanted to save it so that you could react to it live on the air. But I got some news to tell you guys before we get into the main topic. So check this out. I'm going to bring this picture up right now. What you see here is my journal and the names of 8 of my videos. And above that, hopefully you guys can read my handwriting. I know it's quite messy. I've been told that I have the handwriting of a doctor. You see 8 video titles of mine on screen now. 5 of them are differently wired episodes. 2 of them are episodes from my Truth About Asperger's Syndrome series. And one of them is a completely separate video that I did on one of my heroes named Audrey Hepburn. Now, 8 of these videos that you see on screen right now have been demonetized. Now, John, I don't know if that means anything to you. I'm not sure if you're as familiar with YouTube culture and what's been going on in terms of monetization.
No, Manet is a painter in France some time ago. That's about it.
Okay. I'm going to have to introduce you to Picasso later. With my fist. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, I'm just joking. So let me explain this to you, John. So whenever I put out a video on my channel, it gives me the option to monetize the video with ads. And all you have to really do is go into your video manager, select the video, and say, hey, I want to monetize this. Click. However, sometimes the YouTube algorithm or somebody who's extremely offended for whatever reason by advocacy for mental health or, something else as offensive as that, they'll put in a complaint to YouTube saying, hey, I don't think this guy's videos should be monetized. Whether it's the former or the latter, I don't know. But what happened was the YouTube algorithm, whatever it was, determined that these 8 videos that you see on screen now were not safe for monetization. I don't know why. It's not like I'm spewing like ethno-nationalist propaganda or something. I'm just trying to help people who are suffering from their mental health problems or their autism related problems. So, what I did is I submitted a manual review for 7 of these videos. I didn't submit one for the Audrey Hepburn one because I figured it probably was demonetized because there was movie footage in it. But the other ones, I figured that monetization of those videos would be relatively innocuous. Thankfully, the top 4 videos that you see right there have been remonetized, but I'm still waiting on the bottom 3. The bottom 2 in particular, the fact that those were demonetized really, really ticks me off because the fact of the matter is, the majority of my videos don't get that much traffic, but the bottom 2, the videos in my Truth About Asperger's Syndrome series, have gotten a lot of traffic in the past, particularly those 2 videos. And it really annoys me because, I do YouTube as a part-time job alongside my other part-time job that my minimum wage Joe job. And I need the money. So hopefully we'll see how things go with that. I'm going to keep you guys updated about all this. For those of you in the know, a lot of you probably already know what's going on with YouTube and how people are getting demonetized for the most ridiculous reasons. John, I'll probably have to explain this to you later. It's pretty complicated. But anyways, if I just telling you guys this because, if yeah, I know a lot of you don't really have the financial means to listen to us. Hell, 80% of people that are on the autism spectrum are either unemployed or underemployed, so you can't really support us financially. But if there's some way that you can, if you think that there's value to what we're producing here, or in this show or other videos on my channel, please consider donating. There's a link to my PayPal in the description box below. Or if you want, you can send in a super chat. That might be more ideal because, we tend to take live questions at the end of the show. And if you want to have your question highlighted so that we don't miss it, use the super chat function at the bottom of the chat box. So, with that out of the way, John, do you want to talk about our main topic today?
Sure.
Let's.
When you mentioned isolation, it kind of struck to the heart of a problem that goes with being differently wired. And you can be isolated in a very crowded place. You can be isolated in a loving, supported family. You can be isolated when you're alone in your basement hiding under a video game or something. Um, Isolation is in your heart and soul, and it comes as a result of feeling alienated. Sometimes you are simply insular by virtue of the way you separate yourself from places. How can differently wired folks get around that? It's not easy because often they are rebuffed or feel unhappy with the way the world is. So again, I would say, it hovers around finding your tribe. It hovers around getting away from toxicity in whatever form it is and becoming comfortable in yourself. You often talk, Max, about using music to gain a kind of attraction socially.
Mm,
One of the things that we know more and more obviously is that connectedness with the world is a serious element in your health. If
yeah.
you feel disconnected, whatever problems you have in health are going to be exacerbated. If you feel well connected, suddenly these health issues don't have as much impact on your well-being as otherwise. So it's kind of in your mind. If you feel a sense of isolation, you have to take steps for yourself because no one outside can change that. You have to take steps for not easy to do, especially if you have had a fairly long time of feeling that sense of isolation. This really strikes to my heart because so many of the clients come to me and they're in the middle of situations where they feel stranded. They don't know which way to go next. There's too many problems, too many things they're facing, and somehow or another they have to kind of regroup and find ways to connect with loving, supportive, but more than anything, empathetic people. You have to find people that understand what you're faced with. I'm sorry to rant on and on, but
No, no, no. That's great. What you're saying is very important. See, one thing that people don't tend to realize is that even though people that are on the spectrum or that tend to have mental health problems like general anxiety disorder or the like, even though they are more likely to be introverted and more likely to want to avoid social situations, the fact of the matter is there's still that element of a desire for human contact,
mm,
human socialization. It's just it's a lot more difficult for people that are differently wired. So, for example, I'll just take examples from my own life where isolation has played a factor, and then I can maybe sort of give examples of how I grew beyond that and how other people can grow beyond that. I suppose, John, like you have a huge clientele where you've helped people out of their own personal isolations. So, first of all, there's a theory that the reason why people with autism tend to have strengthened social anxiety, a desire to avoid any public situations where they had to be around other people, is because at a young age, they realize their inherent inability to recognize body language, social cues, all that sort of stuff. But at when you're younger and you're still developing, maybe that level of social awkwardness was not as high as it was as you grow older. But maybe something happened when you were younger where you realized your incompatibility with most social situations and with most neurotypicals. And then the theory goes is that as you're developing, you put all your mental effort towards trying to be good at something else, which is why people that are on the autism spectrum, for example, tend to develop these great talents when it comes to one or two specific areas of special interest, right? And that's at least certainly the case for me. As you mentioned before, when I was in high school, because I had a hard time socializing, my way to get the company of other people was by playing music. I didn't have to talk, I just had to play the guitar or the piano, right? So that's what I'd recommend in that regard if people are having trouble at first. But anyways, the natural consequence of this, if you don't find that road in towards being among other people, being able to be a part of conversations and not feel awkward and to feel valued, unless you find that way in, the likelihood that you're going to self isolate or just end up isolated, whether you want to or not, is very, very high. And I'm not surprised. Like when I came up with, well, I didn't come up with this topic. I put out a call to people on Discord saying, hey, is there anything that you guys want to talk about? And a lot of them, I think the first guy that suggested it was a guy that goes by the name what's his name? That What You Did Not Expect. He suggested that we talk about isolation. And then a whole bunch of people below that said, yeah, can you please talk about isolation? So it's a very, very common thing. And unfortunately, once you get there, it's very, very difficult to get out. Now, I I've had my own methods, but they're not really applicable to everybody. People who are differently wired, they tend because they have very specific areas of interest. When it comes to getting out of their isolation, they have to use very specific methods as well. For me personally, the way that I was able to get in contact with more people despite my isolation was by doing YouTube. I did my videos, people commented on them, they wanted to talk to me, they'd send me emails. I set up the Discord server that makes it easier for people to come talk to me. So even though, I don't really have very many friends in real life that I talk to on a regular basis, at least I have that. So I can always have somebody within reasonable reach to talk to that shares the same problems that I have, and they understand where I'm coming from, right? So that's one good aspect of it. But obviously, like I just said, there are other methods that we have to discuss. Now, John, I was just wondering if maybe you could suggest a couple of those based on your clientele.
well, I'm thinking one of the things that we've had a good luck with is getting people to outside their pain and emotion. And that is to say, look at it from a different angle. In a lot of ways, that's very helpful. So, for instance, if you feel isolated when you're with a crowd or whatever your circumstance, if you feel isolated, you can kind of feel isolated and then step back from that feeling and say, hmm, what's going on in this brain of mine? What's going on around me that gives me this feeling? So, in other words, instead of trying to feel your way out of the feeling, you can kind of use your brain to say, well, what's happening here? Uh, do do I prefer not to feel isolated? Sometimes you want to be alone. Sometimes you prefer to be alone because you're the best company you can have under that particular circumstance you're in. But if you step aside, step back from that and examine it and look at the situation, look at what you're up, how you're feeling. Do you want to feel different? Okay. Be curious about what could happen. What could I do to feel different? Now, often what you can do to feel different is to not talk. I know that's contrary. Being among people, talking is great. But if if you have trouble with having saying the right thing and not being awkward, sometimes smiling knowingly and seraphically and nodding is the best thing you can do in a cocktail party or a gathering, a coffee shop, a networking event. People come up to you and talk. You smile. You're not going to get in trouble for that. So you listen more. Often listening more is better than talking more. These are very simple things, but you know, stepping back from the pain, stepping back from the sense of isolation and looking at it in a sort of objective way and not talking too much. It's kind of a good start for ways of relating to people around you.
I want to build on top of that by just adding one thing to what you said about nodding along and just listening. I'd recommend that you buy yourself a rocking chair, but one that doesn't rock backwards, but what rocks forwards. So that way you can fake interest in any conversation. You don't even have to pay attention. And people will be like, wow, you're such a great listener. I don't.
You're making light of it, but it's underneath. It's not all that funny
What do you
because
mean I'm making light of it? I'm being totally serious, John.
I'd like to see you in a rocking chair that just goes forward with your head down. That'd be funny.
Yeah, I'd probably just fall out of it, but you get the point.
Yep.
I am
Yeah.
joking because, okay, here's the thing. I know there are a lot of people that are like, wait, hold on. Well, let me just step back for a second. I have a history of saying some really ridiculous stuff, but people believe me because I deliver it in a deadpan tone.
Mhm.
Here, I'm going to tell a story quickly. Let me just go off topic for a second, but yeah, I promise this will be an entertaining tangent. So, as you notice, I tend to talk very direct, and I can modulate my voice to make it seem like I'm very serious. And I've been able to use that to my own personal amusement, especially when I was younger. I remember when I was in high school, I liked to mess with people by using that. I sort of treated it as a bit of a superpower. I remember when I was in grade 12 law, I might have told this story before. John, like, do you remember me telling you the story about when I was in grade 12 law and I confused a whole bunch of people?
Rings a bell, but go ahead and ring the bell.
Yeah, there might be some people here that haven't heard of it before. Well, anyways, I was in grade 12 law, even though I was in grade 11 at the time. I was taking grade 12 law. And we were doing group work together. We pushed our desks together. And I think the topic that we were talking about had something to do with the rights of religious minorities. And naturally, because, you're around a bunch of teenagers, immature teenagers, they tended to make fun of certain religious minorities. Um, and, eventually they made their way around to the Jehovah Witnesses, right? And then I just took it as an opportunity because I was feeling kind of bored. I used it as an opportunity to have some fun for myself. So then when they started making fun of the Jehovah Witnesses, I was like, hey guys, I'd really appreciate it if you didn't make fun of the Jehovah Witnesses. And then this couple of them to my right turned to me and said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Are you a Jehovah Witness? And he's like, no, I'm actually a part of a sub-organization of the Jehovah Witnesses. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, have you ever heard of the Jehovah Witness Protection Program? And they're like, no, what's that? And I was like, well, because Jehovah Witnesses tend to go door to door, people can tend to be pretty violent. We tend to lose some of our best guys that way. So our policy is essentially, for every bullet that the Jehovah Witnesses take, well, us pretending to be the Jehovah Witnesses, we get $100. And they, just because of the way that I delivered it at the time, they believe me. No joke, they believe me.
Well, I believe you right now.
Oh my God, I'm not. I'm not serious. Man, I should probably start doing this more often. Holy. Oh, and another one. I remember when I was in grade 12. history. We were talking about the religious traditions of various cultures around the world. I think I said something along the lines of I lied and said that my family was full of Orthodox Christians, and there were churches in the area that were constantly being vandalized, like they were taking the baby Jesuses out of the manger. And then I sort of lied and said, hey, what we actually tend to make a tradition of, what we're kind of known for in our church community, is that my family, because we're a rather large family, we go to all the churches in the area, stand outside the churches in front of the manger scenes, and ward off vandals by using whatever tools we have at our disposal: tennis rackets, golf clubs, rolling pins. And again, it's like I thought, okay, when I was making that joke, I was like, okay, this is so ridiculous. There's got to be people that don't believe me. And thankfully, my professor did, and half of my class didn't believe me. But there were some that did. Like when I was walking out of the classroom, there was this guy that's like, hey, bro, were you serious when you talk about that? And I was like, no, are you crazy? It's like, God. All right. Anyways, I'm looking at people in the chat right now. People tend to be laughing their asses off. So I'm glad that you appreciated that tangent. The only problem is I don't really know where to go from here. John, do you have any?
Back into isolation.
Yeah, back. Maybe this is the reason why people tend to leave me in isolation. It's like, yeah, you go and do your own thing. I don't trust you with your. I don't trust any brain that comes up with crazy crap like that. No, I'm just joking. There are people that I have in my life that no, I'm just joking and love me anyways. But yeah, any other methods that you'd recommend, John?
Let me think. Well, of course, there is the tried and true of you leaving what you're doing and trying to ease yourself into situations that stretch your comfort zone a teeny bit. Now, a lot of differently wired folks have had it with that and have just given up on that. But it's not bad to say, okay, I don't want to go to see this massive big event, but I might go to this one, or I might go to that one, or I might go to a movie with somebody, or I might, you know what I mean? Like, it's nice to explore ways to open up your mind, your heart, actually, to slightly new experiences. As gentle a way as you can. I think it's good to experiment with that.
Yeah, like I know there are some people out there, particularly in my Discord community, that tend to have a lot of trouble just going up to somebody and talking to them, right? So what I recommend, just going off of what you just said there, John, is you got to make small gains and take them legitimately as victories. So, for example, if you're absolutely terrified of any form of socialization, going to any form of social event, you got to take baby steps in that regard. So, let's say one thing that you can do, maybe like you're into video games or maybe you're into anime. I'm going off of the people that are in my Discord server, and you want to talk to people about this, but you're terrified. Well, what I recommend, one thing that we suggested on the show before, is go to something like, what is it, meetup.com, John? Is that it? Yeah, go to meetup.com. Maybe find something in your local area where people hang out and do things or talk about things that are of your interest. And you go there and you don't have to talk to anybody. You just go there and you sit around and listen to what people are saying. And then you go home and you consider that a victory. Then you have to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to go there again next week or whenever the next meeting is. You go there, and this time you'll go up to somebody and shake their hand and introduce yourself. And then maybe you can say, hey, I'm not that much into socialization. I have a lot of problems, but I just wanted to shake your hand and appreciate you and tell you that I appreciate you having me, right? Then you go home, and that's one victory. The next time you go and you try to hold a conversation that lasts a minute long, and then 2 minutes long, or 5 minutes long. And then eventually you'll start to find yourself doing this stuff unconsciously, and all those previous worries will start to dissipate. But you got to do it slowly, and you got to do it cautiously. Anyways, I like. Yep, go.
Yeah, one of the things that you made me think of when you talked about going to your interests is if you're in an environment where the people around you are passionately interested in something that interests you, they won't pay as much attention to you. In
Hmm.
other words, you won't be as exposed. If you're at, for argument's sake, you're at the championship game, the Raptors are winning. People are not looking at you and how are you clapping or jumping up and down. They're interested in that. So if it's an event where everybody's paying attention to the event, that's not a bad place to spend time in amongst others, with who
Absolutely.
are passionate. You know what I mean? There's already you're not like a nightmare would be to go to a cocktail party and have to introduce yourself to people and then make up stuff to say, and everybody's looking and waiting for you to say the next thing. That's kind of dangerous. But this other event where everybody's passionately interested, observing, partaking of something, it seems to me that would be more interesting.
Well, it might not that be that threatening if you go to a cocktail party and maybe drink a whole bunch of cocktails before you start talking to people.
That'll
No,
do.
no. No, I'm joking. Again, I'm joking in case you guys couldn't tell. Uh,
Oh darn.
we don't. I mean, you could do that, John. I mean, like, you're a responsible adult. I just don't want to be responsible for people, getting alcohol poisoning or something. Anyways, that'll do it for this main topic. Look, guys, if you have any stories about isolation or tips about how you can sort of help other people get out of that funk, stuff that's worked for you, I recommend you put them either in the live chat right now, or if you're listening to this pre-recorded afterwards, put your suggestions in the comment box below. I'd love to hear them, and I'm sure a lot of other people that really need suggestions would love to hear them too. Anyways, with that out of the way, we're going to do something that we haven't done in a couple weeks, John. We are going to go into the mailbag segment. Now, what is the mailbag segment? In case some of you guys forgot, well, I'm so glad you asked. But before I tell you, I gotta. Sorry, I'm all over the place. Joel Wiss. I can't remember if he said it's Weiss or Wiss. I gotta say Wiss. Joel Wiss sends in a $2 super chat. You the man, Joel. Thank you so much. And he said, John Tucker meme is something needed. Yeah, in case you guys missed, what was it, last week's episode or before that, we were making fun of her. I can't remember how that joke came up. Do you remember how that joke came up, John?
No, just regular making fun of my name, stuff like that. I'm used to that.
Make it. um, I, I don't. Okay, whatever. Anyways, let's talk about the mailbag. If you guys want to be a part of the mailbag segment, it's really, really simple. All you have to do, I'm going to put my email address on screen right now. All you have to do is use the email address you see on screen now and send your email to me. It could be about whatever you want. It could be about autism related issues or mental health related issues, anything that could be constituted as differently wired stuff. Email us, and we'd love to try and address whatever problems that you're having, or maybe read out a story where you've had a moment of personal success despite your personal issues. We'd love to hear from you. And also, if sometimes people send in questions during the show, and we miss them. But a great way for us to be able to make sure that we don't miss them is if you send them in using Twitter. And you can use the hashtag that you see on screen right now, all one word, differently wired. You don't have to use the capitals. And that way, it highlights questions that you guys might have in regards to autism or mental health or the topic of the show. And we can get to them if we have time at the end of the show. Although, if you want to guarantee that your question is read out, make sure that you use the super chat function at the very bottom of the chat box, like I said before. Anyways, first email comes to us from Pedro, or Pedorf1. And Pedorf1 writes, Hi Max, Pedorf1 once again. This Monday I got, on top of all the stress of generally, an infuriating moment. I'm not getting into details as not to cause issues, but basically I had a class in which we made groups and discussed about a fictional patient. Each two groups would get the same questions, and after discussing within your group, someone from the group would speak up for the class about your conclusions. The class itself was a bit on the boring side, but I really liked talking in front of the class. When it was my group's turn, I started speaking but mentioned I personally disliked how one of the questions was phrased. Some professor got really upset at that and from then on interrupted my group, saying it was the other group's turn, not letting me talk about the second of the two questions we had. After that, on every comment this professor made about the questions, she portrayed my group as which didn't get the question's idea, and while the other group spoke about both questions, she never let me finish my thoughts on the second one. Despite this being something that should just be mildly upsetting, I mean, it was just a question in class, half the people were falling asleep, this really upset me. My first impulse was to shout and fall on the floor with anger. My second impulse was to punch my thigh to control the anger, as I do sometimes, but I realized this would bring too much attention. My third impulse was to bite myself to control the anger. Most of my backup plans involved some minor degree of self harm to control the anger, but finally I managed to hide my anger by singing some songs to myself. Still, this only worked to hide how upset I was at the whole event. After all, it was my turn to speak. Why did she have to act so stupidly because I disliked the question and pointed it out as politely as possible? When I was on my way back home, I finally couldn't hold it to myself anymore and gave a few strong punches to my arm in the middle of the walkway. Before going to sleep, I remembered it once again and punched myself before remembering I could just punch the pillows. Even after talking to a friend of mine yesterday, I wasn't entirely okay with it, as today, when telling my father about it, he replied in a way that implied it was something normal for the professor to do, and that I was the one responsible, because I talked too much. This made me really want to break the glass panel on the bus stop I was. Fortunately, I didn't act on this yet again. I recognize it isn't something that deserves so much thought from me, and I should not get so upset about something nobody cared about, but it still upsets me so much. Well, I can understand why that would upset you, dude. It's like the fact that you got such a strong reaction, even though you were trying to do your best with the assignment and trying to provide constructive criticism. Obviously, you were probably confused at the whole situation and why everything blew up as it did. And because your brain can't process or why things happened the way they did, you beat yourself up about it. Because, this is something that happened to me a lot during school, is that so many of these different types of events would happen, and they would sort of follow the same pattern where I'd speak up and then people would groan, or somebody would chastise me, and I would sort of just brood and spin about what exactly it was that I did wrong, and not really get an answer why. Now, as for the specifics of the situation, I don't know. Maybe the teacher was being a jerk, or maybe there's also an equal possibility that because you were speaking too long and you didn't realize that that wasn't socially acceptable to all the neurotypicals in your class, that maybe it was upsetting them. Now, even though I understand that you didn't intentionally do anything wrong, unfortunately, because of the natural tendency for people that are neuroatypical to not follow normal social cues, it ended up becoming a big problem. Now, John, I don't know. Maybe I just missed something while I was reading the question. Does it, like, were you able to determine whether or not it was the teacher's fault, or maybe, I don't know.
I'm not absolutely certain. It seems like the teacher was being a bit of a jerk. It is possible that Pedoff was talking longer than he realized he was talking. However, I gotta say, look at all the numbers of times he wanted to hurt himself and didn't, or scream or do something and didn't do it. He showed amazing restraint to get those impulses not to create a new problem for himself. So that's difficult, and I think it's to be admired that he could feel as constrained and still manage to keep things under control. The actual sense of injustice has been touched on here, and he felt as though he was kind of betrayed by the situation. So I understand that, and I'm not sure it's that unusual for you to feel bad when you get cut off or when you get disrespected in that way. But managing to not, break stuff and roll around on the floor and do stuff, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, people. I'm speaking from my own personal experience, because you have these inner angry tendencies to act out when some sort of gross injustice happens to you. It's something that you
Hmm.
don't understand, but you have to keep it under control. That enormous stress to your brain, and the fact that you do keep it under control, is it's perversely, but it is a great way of disciplining yourself. And it creates a level of discipline that most people that are neurotypical will never have, because they never have to deal with the inner conundrums that people who are differently wired naturally have to deal with. So I applaud you, dude. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that you had to go through this. Maybe in the future, when you do this, I just recommend, just as a precaution, if you're going to speak in front of the class, or if you're going to answer a question from the teacher or something, just try to think of a way where you can shorten your response as best as you can, And if stuff like this happens again in the future, try to pay attention to everything that's going on around you. So that way, maybe you can email us again and talk about what happened, and then we can get a better idea and help you out more. Okay? Anyways, thank you so much for sending that in, Pedro. We got to move on. This next one, it's a very short one. It comes to us from Matthew, and Matthew writes, "Hi, my name's Matthew and I have Asperger's. I only found your videos recently, but they have really helped me understand more about what I have." Well, thanks so much, Matthew. I'm really glad that I was able to provide you that service. Recently, I've been feeling really down after I broke out in tears during my drama exam last week from some personal issues. When I got out of the exam, I was shouted at and put in detention by one of the examiners saying, "I don't care who you are or what condition you have." I wanted to know if you've ever experienced something like that in your life. Great. I'm sorry that you had to go through that, Matthew. That they can't. I don't understand like who said that and why they think they can get away with that. I think it's pretty safe to say that if you say that you're on the spectrum and you have these issues that you really can't control that well, but they don't care and they say that to you, that might be considered discriminatory, right, John?
Well, this is a person exceeding rid of Nick. I have no patience with this examiner at all. To me, this is not. There's nothing ambiguous about this. This guy is an ass.
Yeah.
If this is in any way what he said, it doesn't fit. It doesn't matter. If you see somebody suffering, what you ought to do is reach out and help them with their suffering. So this is the opposite of what this person does. So Matthew, if you had personal issues and they affected you, you have a right to those personal issues, and you have a right to have people respect your expression of those things. It's fine.
Yeah.
Tears are great. Tears are honest.
Yeah, I can understand, like, if this was the first time this happened and, maybe the person thought that the way that you're acting, maybe they don't know anything about autism. And they're like, why is this grown-up person acting like a child? But when you say that, hey, I have autism, I have Asperger's, the fact that they don't respond to that and they continue to chastise you is disgusting. So I'm really sorry that you went.
So.
I'm really sorry that you had to go through that. I'd highly recommend. I don't know if you're at high school or university or I don't know. Just see if there's somebody that you could speak to that can maybe advocate on your behalf. Explain to them what happened, so that way you don't have to deal with something as useless as this again. Now, as for whether or not I've experienced something like this, I've never had somebody in real life treat me differently when I told them I've had Asperger's. That's not true. There is one example I can think of, but for the most part, whenever somebody has found out that I have AS, normally what they do is they try to push me away or insult me behind my back, just so they don't say it to my face. And I think the reason why they did that, a lot of people throughout my life, is because I'm 6'4". I tend to have, my face tends to rest in a way that makes me kind of look like I'm scowling, which is too bad because normally I'm very happy to talk to anybody that will have the time to talk to me. But maybe they thought that if they were cruel to my face, that I might retaliate in some physical way, which is too bad. I could think of one example. I remember I was friends with somebody. I might just start rambling in a second, guys. These are really bad memories, and I tried my best to push them out of my head. There was this one friend that I had, a girlfriend, not like a romantic girlfriend, but she was just a girl that was a friend. And at the time, I think I was 17. For the entire time that I knew her, I was, very protective of her. I was considerate of her feelings to the point where it might have seemed overzealous. And when I came out and said that I have Asperger's, a friend of this friend of mine said something to the effect that because I had Asperger's, I couldn't be trusted. And maybe the reason why I was treating her so kind in an overzealous way was because of the fact that I had Asperger's. And unfortunately, without my knowing, my effusiveness came off as a little bit unsettling, which I acknowledge. At no point did I think, or I think she would admit, that I was doing anything that was untoward or harassing, because I was always very nice to her. But as a result, I found out through covert means that she said that because I had Asperger's, I couldn't be trusted. And as a result, long story short, I actually lost her as a friend because this friend of hers said that, like, there are a lot of people that have AS that tend to exhibit bad behavior without realizing what they're doing. And yeah, sorry. That's as best as I can remember it. Sorry if I kept pausing and rambling, but
Well,
that's
there's a reason to pause. It's an unsettling and an unhappy past
yeah,
memory. And these kinds of situations, what makes them terrible is that they're not justified. They're not justified or logical. They just happen. And it's really hard to put up with something that seems randomly unfair like that. So, you know,
yeah.
it,
Um,
it would cause anyone pause.
it's too bad. I really liked her as a friend. I hope she's doing okay now. Um, anyways, it's you know what? We'll save the third mailbag question for next week. We got to get to our callers. They've been waiting very patiently. So, well, actually, before I get like explain the call-in segment and let our callers speak, I just want to ask you guys. I see there are 70 of you watching. That's actually a nice jump up from the numbers that we've had the past couple of weeks. So thank you very much, guys. But before I go on to the call-in segment, like I said, there are 70 people watching, and there's only 33 likes. Hello. It's there. It's free. Just hit it. You all know what it does to the YouTube algorithm. It takes our videos and passes it around, puts it in people's recommended feeds. It pushes us closer to world domination. No, I'm kidding. It pushes us closer to helping people that truly need it. And Joel Wiss sends in another $2 super chat. Thank you so much. And he says, to make things happier, smash that like button. There you go. Highlight it for everybody to see. Notional 2006 says, we can't thumbs up in the Jehovah Witness program. I don't know. See, that again, that was a joke. And there's no such thing as the Jehovah Witness protection program. Although, if there was, I'd probably just join it for kicks, because it'd be so
You
funny
know,
that
next week there probably will be such a program
yeah,
after this.
we're gonna get mean letters from the Jehovah Witnesses and the Jehovah Witness Protection Program. And they're like, "Hey, we're a legitimate organization. We got to protect these people. We got to go door to door pretending that we're somebody that we're not. You don't know us. You don't know what we're dealing with." Anyways, weird tangents. That's what this show is known for. Let's go into the call-in segment. So yeah, it's pretty much self-explanatory. We go to people in a Discord server. They sign up that want to talk to us about whatever particular issues that are bothering them. And we got two people lined up, and we're going to start off with a new caller to our program, and he goes by the name Shmuly. Is it okay if we call you Smully?
Shmuly or Shmuly, whichever way
Shmuly.
you want to pronounce it. Isolationism, like I felt isolated, starting off as a very small child. I didn't really have any friends growing up prior to elementary school. Um, then in elementary school, trying to navigate the social landscape, I think it was extremely painful for me to do so because I would take very personally the rejection or the perceived rejection of other children, and it hurt me very deeply. I didn't understand that if someone necessarily didn't want to be my friend, that it wasn't that they were my enemy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so, from a very young age, I felt rejected, and I couldn't quite put put my thumb upon it. Um, Unfortunately, this caused me a lot of academic issues that otherwise wouldn't have manifest themselves all throughout elementary school. They were giving me tests and trying to figure out what was wrong with me because they could put me in the class. I would make consistent D's and F's, And then the teacher at the end of class could ask me every single one of the questions over what she taught in the lecture, and I would get them all right.
Mm.
So I was repeatedly told by staffs, like, we don't know what is wrong with you. And that also made me feel considerably worse because the nothing was going right, whereas other people it was. And luckily, I was able to have a friend, which is my one lifelong friend thus far. But after elementary school, I was able to start taking classes online, and that's really I spent my middle school and high school years uh, in solitude, essentially,
Yeah.
at home, which was beneficial. A lot of um, a lot of the issues I had as far as were gone because I could just make my own schedule, and I'm a driven individual. But um, certainly, middle school and high school never really had a girlfriend. Never really did much socialization.
Yeah, same dude. I certainly feel you about elementary school. When you're that young, I remember there are kids that were so cruel to me. Pretty much all of them. I only had one or two
Yes.
friends. And at that time, it's just like, wait, did I do something wrong? Like, why are you being cruel to me? There doesn't seem to be any reason for this. It's just completely pointless.
Well, and the difficult thing now is, now I've gone to university, but I still have some issues with mathematics that I think really come from the fact that I did not learn a lot of the basic mathematics, and I had to essentially self-teach myself 2 grade levels every year
Yeah.
to graduate, and as well as spelling and writing. They're particularly atrocious in that aspect, and so even as an adult, I am haunted sort of by both the lack of early socialization and uh, the fact that I didn't get a proper um, first to fifth grade education, and it's particularly difficult because um, you feel sort of insecure about your intelligence
Mm.
because what people will see you make a blunder, and to an average person, even an average intelligence person, they're going to dismiss you as not so.
Dude, you just laid out my fears as a YouTuber. It's exactly what goes through my head all the time. It's just like if I make one gaffe, and it has something to do with something that I'm very self-conscious about, I'm terrified that a whole bunch of people will focus on that one gaffe that I made and exacerbate it and make me feel terrible about it. Is that sort of what you're afraid of as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's just difficult because they won't understand, I feel, and a lot of it is also my sister. She, from a very early age, was very blunt with me, and she was trying to, I think, in her own way, explain it. But it was like, why are you twitching like that? Why are you doing this and that? People aren't going to like that. Overstimulating, like purposely overstimulating me and setting me up so that I would have freakouts. I would be just so uh, distraught and broken that I couldn't function.
Right. Well, I I have a couple things that I want to say about this, and I want John to get in on here. We sort of said this in the past. Now that you realize, like, do you have an official diagnosis for AS?
I I I don't.
Do
Um,
you suspect that you have it?
yeah,
Okay.
I do, and now going to university. I've interacted with other people that do have it, and they have similar stories as far as the difficulties they face. So I suspect that it is,
Okay.
as well as reading Sasha, or not,
Simon.
Baron yeah, Cohen's work um, on the subject,
Okay.
kind of also.
Well, based on what you've told me, and based on the way that you've been speaking, I can sort of surmise that maybe you are somewhere on the spectrum. What I'd recommend, now that you realize that you probably are on the spectrum, you can definitely use this to your advantage, because this way you sort of have a way of defining your problems, and now that it's laid out before you and you're not sort of in that pit of confusion where you don't understand what's going on like you were in elementary school, you can make a way forward. Now, you said that you have a friend, or you've had friends. Like, what's the status on that right now?
Yeah, I have I've made friends. I've had a few relationships, and there's been difficulties. So yeah, I mean, I make friends. I just don't have a wide circle of people, right? I have like two friends, and everyone else is an acquaintance.
Okay, and you can sort of speak to them, um, about what's going on inside your head, and they won't.
Yeah, and I believe myself to be relatively high functioning now.
Good.
I've done that by just like kind of being cold, and I'm able to just keep things inside and keep myself moving forward, even though internally I might be feeling chaotic. And sometimes I do break. I do have a moment where it all comes through, but I also don't think that that's necessarily the healthiest thing either. But it's kind of the catch 22, right? Do I
Yeah.
want to continue to be high functioning, or do I want to, maybe not bottle things up and to actually be treating my mental health better?
Right. Well, you can't have things bottled up from time to time. But hold on, I don't want to talk anymore. I think John might have one or two things to say.
Not too much. I'm very impressed with Shmuly's articulate description of this isolation that he faced, and it is painful to hear. And I am sorry for that misery that you went through, but you are, as you say, driven, and your courage is making you forge ahead in unfriendly territory. And I wouldn't worry about a wide circle of friends. I wouldn't worry about that at
Yeah.
all. Having one or two good friends is really precious. That's very precious. People that you can be comfortable with, people you don't have to protect yourself from. Don't need a large number. What you need is the quality. So that's a great thing. Um, Again, back to the isolation stuff. It is okay to test the waters on slightly new environments while you're looking after yourself. Looking after yourself is primary. You have to take care of you have to take care of safety. You have to take care of your own comfort. You've somehow managed to do that. So well done. And I have a feeling that your intelligence is going to be a great asset to you as you go forward.
Yeah, especially like you're saying, you learned how to do 2 grades of math all within a year just so you can catch up.
Mm.
Dude, if I were to do that, I would have lost my mind years
Well,
ago.
I mean, it was years of, being, I don't know, what's middle school age, like 14, 15, and having to stay up till 11 o'clock doing 5 hours of math and literally crying. I mean, but the alternative was, do I drop out of middle school? That what kind of life then would I be able to lead? So
You're a hero, man.
Yeah, I
People,
well,
think I think you're a warrior, really.
do listen. I'm gonna have to let you go in a second, but I just
yes,
want to
sir.
tell people in the chat, yo, show my man here some love, because that's some pretty impressive stuff. And if you ever want to come back on and talk more about it, your experiences, or if you need some advice or resources about anything, please do come back, as
Well,
you've been a great guest.
I enjoy the show in the sense that um, me contributing somewhat to it in any aspect that as long as it would be beneficial to others, I'm always here to contribute how I can.
Yeah, anybody who comes on the call-in segment is beneficial, dude. Anyways, thanks so much for coming on, dude. We'd love to have you on again if you want to come on again. I'm unfortunately gonna have to mute you so we can bring on our next guest. We have about 5 minutes left, John. If you need to go, just let us know.
Yep,
But
I'm good for 5.
Okay, cool. We're gonna unmute our second caller, and he'll be our last caller. You'll probably recognize him from one of our most recent episodes. He is Blam. Blam, welcome back, player.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, dude. How's it going with you?
Pretty good. A little bit of improvement,
A little bit of what?
Improvement.
Improvement, yeah? What'd you
Yeah.
want to talk about?
So actually, I want to start off by saying to Shmuly that if you ever need someone to talk to, my DMs are open.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So back to what John and Max talked about earlier, I think it's really good that you found your kind of social group because I also had a hard time with interacting with people, and I pretty much didn't have any friends up until pretty much like the middle of college, which is when I actually found uh, the group that I nested with really well. Um, so I think the first thing that I would recommend people who feel isolated is to feel confident in themselves and to definitely cut out toxic people. Um, I do get that it's really hard to do this, especially if there's someone really close to you. But also, you have to identify between if someone is being toxic or if they're just trying to help you, but
But
they're
also you have
criticizing
to
you, but
identify.
they're trying to like point out problems that you have, and they're trying to say that you should work on these problems because it's better for you to interact socially. And then my second piece of advice would be to find a hobby that you really enjoy. Um, I started doing this naturally, like when I was in middle school. Like I got a Rubik's cube, and then I sort of joined like all the Rubik's cube clubs on school, and in high school and in college. And then now I can like solve it under a minute on average. And then
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
um, and then like piano I've been doing since I was 7 years old, so like a lot of years on that. And then that's really put me through a lot of stress that I've had in my life just recently. And then the last thing is dancing, which I've found a separate group of friends that I also really enjoy being around
Mm.
because we all like doing the same thing. So I think finding a hobby would definitely help with the isolation.
Man, you know, I love the people in my Discord server, the people that listen to the show, but the one downside of it is the fact that so many of you are so smart and so talented that it makes me feel kind of bad about myself. So, that like a Rubik's cube in under 1 minute, God, I remember.
That's astounding.
Yeah,
That's astounding.
I remember taking a bus to school every day, and there was always this one kid at the back of the bus, and everybody was. This was in high school. They would all crowd around him and watch him do these Rubik's cubes, like within like 30 seconds or something. And I'd always be standing off to the side. It's like, I want to do that. I can't do that. I'll just pick up my guitar and get leered at by all the other people my age are all into the top 40 crap, and I'm here playing Led Zeppelin. Sorry for that little bit of a Vietnam flashback, but anyways, take it away from sort of what you're talking about. But yeah, obviously what you said there, hobby, you and the Rubik's Cube is a lot like what I did with music. It's a great way of sort of getting people to come in your direction without having to adopt social skills. And yeah, dancing. I agree with that. A little bit of an unknown fact about me. Some of you might find this really, really hard to believe, but I actually used to dance, and I used to do a whole bunch of Michael Jackson and James Brown stuff. I bet you didn't know that, John.
I did not know that. I'm impressed.
Yeah, my family can confirm. Unfortunately, none of them are around right now. There's a video of me out there somewhere dancing. I'd have to find it and. Yeah, yeah. I don't think you can actually see my face. It's just a camera of me dancing from behind. So maybe I can put that up on my YouTube channel at some point, so you guys can see that I'm not lying. But yeah, it's a lot of it's pretty good. I remember slight tangent here, and my parents didn't know that I actually could dance. I just learned all the dance moves late at night. And nobody found this out until 2012. My cousin was getting married, and when I was at the after party, there was a big dance floor, and Billie Jean by Michael Jackson started playing.
Hmm.
And I just instinctively, I think it was because I had like 4 shots of tequila, I ran out onto the dance floor and I just started doing the whole Motown 25 routine that Michael Jackson did back in the mid 80s. And I apparently did a decent job, even though I was inebriated, because my cousin who got married, she came up to me and she's like, Max, I'm so fucking proud of you, man. Yeah, so great pieces of advice.
Dancing is wonderful for abandon. It allows you to do stuff, and you don't. I don't know. You can do a lot of stuff on the dance floor that you can't really do otherwise. It's a wonderful freedom. So, and it's good to get that exercise. It's good. It's good for your spirit. It's like Zorba the Greek. Every man needs a little craziness, and we need to dance. Dancing's good.
You know what? John, I am serious as cancer when I say that rhythm is a dancer. do you get that reference?
No. Sorry.
Come on, it was okay, whatever. Snap, the 80s. I've got the power. Okay. Sorry, I had to put you through that. Blam's probably feeling so uncomfortable right now. Is there anything else you wanted to say, Blam?
I think that's about it.
I think we scared him. Did we scare you? I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay,
No, that's a great contribution. Lovely suggestions. And I especially appreciate you reaching out to our previous caller.
Yeah, dude.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's another thing. A lot of people. It was last week, I think, too, where who was it? Dave Barker. He said he was having trouble talking to people, and the three people that were also in the call said, "Hey, talk to us whenever you want." And
yeah, this is nice. This is nice community stuff.
Yeah. God bless all of you. Before we conclude, I just want to let you guys know that PC sends in a $20 super chat. Thanks so much, dude. That's very, very generous. We really, really appreciate it. He says, I'm undiagnosed, too easy to make friends with dysfunctional people, harder to find healthy people, especially when you're older. Thanks, Max. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. Aside from one person that I'm still friends with from high school, I pretty much had to cut all those people out because, yeah, they do take advantage of you. Oh my goodness. And another person sends in Jeremy Runyon sends in $10. Got a job offer after months of trying. Hopefully YouTube monetizes your videos again. Well, good job, dude. Let us know what the job was. I don't know if you'll be able to put it in before we end the show, but please try. I'd like to know what you got if you want to share. Thanks so much for these generous donations, guys. We really do appreciate it. Anyways, Blam, thanks so much for coming on. Feel free to come on again if you have anything else to say anytime. Just you know what to do, okay? All right. Gotcha. I'm gonna mute you now. Thanks so much, and I'm gonna do the usual end of the show routine. First of all, I just want to remind you guys, if you have any questions that you want to be on the show, anything that has to do with you, maybe has to do with the topic of the show, whatever. All you have to do is send in your email to maxderrat@yahoo.ca. That's the email that you see on screen right now. And also, I feel like there's usually one. Oh, yeah. If you guys want to help us out, I'll just repeat what I said at the very beginning of the show. There are two ways that you can do it. You can do it financially or not financially. One way is by using the PayPal link in the description box below. All money that you send to us goes back towards the show, improving it and helping us to achieve our goal of world domination. I mean, helping other people. Mm-hmm. Both of those are synonymous.
Same thing.
In my mind, at least. And also, I understand, like I said, not all of you have the financial means. That's fine. The best thing that you guys can do is just take this video or any of the other videos on my channel and share them around. And look, it's actually working because, like I said, we got upwards of 79 people watching this show, which is pretty good because for the last few we've had like an average of 50, and it looks like all the efforts that you guys have been making are paying off. So keep it going. Just keep sharing the stuff around. You might actually share this with somebody that really needs the help, that really needs to have their problems listened to. So yeah, I want to thank John as always. John, thank you so much for
you're most welcome. Thank you, Max.
Thank you, and we'll be doing this again next Wednesday at the exact same time. Until next time, guys, remember, stay yellow.